Ugly, a memoir by Robert Hogue. Chapter 7, 2 Apples for David. I wasn't one of those kids who worried about going to school on my first day. I'd been dispatched to the hospital, admitted overnight, and then stayed there for months. Brought home for weekend visits, placed in the care of doctors, nurses, and specialists, hugged hello and goodbye, and then been picked up perfectly well, sometimes in even better condition, hundreds of times. If nothing else, the hospital had prepared me well for school. Guardian Angels was a small Catholic elementary school run by an order of monks and an order of nuns. Girls attended until grade 7. Boys stayed only until grade 4, then headed to Iona, a combined middle grade and high school that catered to students from grades 5 to 12. One after the other, Michael, Gary, Paula, and Catherine had all managed just fine at Guardian Angels, which was at least some comfort for Mom and Dad. Mom was worried I might have difficulties getting to the bathrooms, which were up a long flight of stairs from the grade 1 classrooms. She petitioned local politicians to provide funds to have a new bathroom block built on the lower level, to no avail. But I was quite capable of using the stairs at home, so there was no reason I couldn't use the stairs at school, too. On my first day of school, I was dressed and ready to go, half an hour before we had to leave, and pestering Mom to get me there as soon as possible. I wanted to take the bus to school like the other kids, but Mom wanted me to spend a few days getting used to school itself before tackling the challenge of the bus. She drove me instead. I don't remember many details about that day. I remember being lost among a sea of small heads in matching green and blue and gray uniforms. I remember trees with trunks bursting through the asphalt, providing some shade from the sun. I remember older kids playing with tennis balls and skipping ropes. And I remember Mom. I remember her standing there watching me walk away, her face a mix of sadness and pride. It was a scary day for her. Her youngest child was heading off into the wild. She could no longer supervise me all day, every day. There was no knowing what might happen. One of my legs might break. I might fall over. I might be too slow getting from place to place. I might be teased. But I survived that first day, unscathed, and returned home happy and excited. On the second day, Mom walked me to the top of the long, steep steps down to the grade 1 classrooms. "I'll be okay, Mom," I said, letting go of her hand. She looked nervous, but nodded. 2/3 of the way down, another grade 1 boy came up the stairs, heading straight for me. He was walking right alongside the rail. If I wanted to get past, I'd either have to stop and wait for him to pass, or grab the railing on the other side. But there was too much hustle and bustle to try to reach for the other side. I didn't know what to do, so I just kept walking, hoping the other boy would get out of my way. He didn't, and when we reached each other, we both stopped. I looked back for Mom, but could not see her among the wave of kids. Then I felt a small hand reach out and grab mine. It was the other boy. He walked down the rest of the stairs, hand in hand. "Hi," I said. "Hi, I'm David," he said. "I'm Robert." David had dark hair and olive skin and spoke in quiet, clipped tones. Our classroom was at the bottom of the stairs and had long wooden racks outside where we left our school bags. David took my school bag from me and started shoving others out of the way, and put mine down. Then he took me into the classroom. David did exactly the same thing the next day. I'd made my first friend at school. At the start of the second week, David went to get my bag. "Leave it, David," I said. "I can do it myself." Luckily, David was getting something out of the friendship, too. Mom was sending me to school with sandwiches and an apple. I wasn't always overly keen on eating the apples and kept giving them to David. It was only fair, I thought, given how much he helped me. Mom eventually found out. Rather than insist I eat my own apple, she started sending me to school with 2 apples. "Now, Robert," she said, "there's one for you and one for David, okay?" I nodded. "Do you understand you can both have an apple?" "Yes, Mom," I said. 2 apples, I understand." I took the 2 apples to school. One day when Mom came to pick me up, she saw David and asked if I had given him one of my apples. "No," David replied with a wide smile. "He gave me 2 apples." The first week of school, I did break my leg. I was going up the stairs to meet Mom when one of the metal shafts snapped. David helped me to the car. Dad phoned the people who had made my legs, and they said it would be repaired by anyone who had a spot welder. So Dad took the leg to the local service station to see if they could weld it together. He walked in and explained what he needed. "Sorry, mate," the service station owner said. "Too busy." It was the same story with the second. At the third service station, the owner took one look at my leg and listened to Dad's explanation. "This is what I call an urgent job," he said. Then he welded my leg back together good as new. After a few weeks, Mom let me start catching the bus to school with Paula and Catherine. The bus stop was about 5 minutes away, and we had to walk up a small hill to the top of our street, around the corner, and then up another small hill. The first time I only made it up our street and around the corner before stopping. "I need a rest," I said. "Why?" Paula asked. "My legs aren't used to it," I said. "We haven't got far to go," she said. I just sat down on the side of the road. "You've got 1 minute," Paula said. After a few more weeks, I adjusted to the journey and could do it more quickly and without having to rest. If other kids realized exactly how different from them I was when I started school, I didn't notice. Eventually it became obvious when my classmates started asking me questions, the sort of questions Mom and Dad usually answered for me, and I didn't know what to say. It started to add up pretty quickly. My first math lesson, some kids didn't seem to care how I looked, but for every kid who didn't care, there were 10 who did. One gray Monday morning, a few weeks after school started, Mom hurried me up to get dressed for a hospital appointment. "Mom, can you put my long pants on?" "No," Mom said. "I've got shorts here for you. Why would you want your long pants on?" I stayed silent. "You don't really want to wear long pants, do you?" she asked. "Yes." "Why?" "Some people look at me and say, 'That boy hasn't got any legs. He must have been in an accident,'" I said. "You don't really care about that, do you?" Mom asked. "Yes, I do." People really aren't trying to be unkind when they say that. If you wear your shorts, they'll be able to see how clever you are and how well you can manage and all the things you can do that they can't. I still didn't want to, but I wore shorts. Medical dramas made it even harder for me to blend in at school. In August 1978, the hospital did a scan that showed a half-inch wide pocket of infection around some of the bones in my forehead. Infections can eat away at bones, so this was serious. It had the potential to undo all the good work the doctors had done. Dr. Atkinson told Mom and Dad he needed to operate to see what was going on. Both my parents were on edge, but especially Dad. He now regretted letting me have the big operation because it seemed to him that afterward I was constantly ill. Before I had been ugly, but healthy. At home, Mom received a bulky envelope from the school that she assumed was schoolwork I'd missed out on. Instead, there were letters from every grade 1 student, all reading, "Dear Robert, we love you very much, and we hope you will be better soon." The operation to investigate the infection was very short. After 2 hours, one of my doctors greeted Mom and Dad at the operating room door. He told them surgeons had cleaned out the infected area. They had removed a few small pieces of wire and silk that had failed to dissolve after my operation the previous February. I went home at the beginning of December, just in time to finish grade 1. Spending months away from school didn't really hinder my education. I'd learned the lessons I was supposed to learn and done well enough at the start of the year to progress to grade 2. After a year of being exposed to other kids, I knew most of them didn't have squashed noses or dents in the sides of their heads, where their eyes used to be. Other kids had legs. You could tickle their feet. I started to realize that each of the kids I regularly saw in the hospital had something different about them. There was the kid in a wheelchair. There was the kid with a strange lump on his neck. But I also started to see them at school, too. There was the kid with the hair lip. There was the one with flaming red hair and the pale white skin. There was the girl who was already taller than all the boys in the class. There was this one really skinny kid, and all the fat ones. Each one had something different about them. I just had differences. Chapter 8. All downhill from here. After I came along, there were 7 of us in the house in Manly West, a suburb of Brisbane. My 2 sisters shared one bedroom, while I alternated between sharing a room with my 2 older brothers and sleeping in a single bed in my parents' room. Most of the time at home, I didn't wear my artificial legs. They were like big, uncomfortable shoes, and every chance I got, I took them off. I could crawl around okay without them on, and I was more comfortable. Plus, I had a lot more physical freedom when I had my artificial legs off. I could jump off couches and jump up and down stairs and crawl around in the backyard. I was pretty quick, too. But there were plenty of things my siblings could do that I couldn't, like riding a bike. I'd see my brothers ride their bikes up and down the street, carrying each other on the back. Sometimes even on the handlebars in front. I wanted to ride a bike so much I thought I'd burst into flames if I didn't. One day, Catherine, Paula, and Gary were playing outside. I asked Gary if I could try riding his bike. Sure, he said, but you'll need your legs on. When I was wearing my artificial legs, they helped me interact better with the big wide world. I was taller when I had them on, and I could walk around like other kids. But that didn't come without a cost. My prosthetics were cumbersome and heavy, and wearing them often made my real legs hot and sore. Imagine wearing a big boot that goes all the way up to your knee, and you'll get a sense of what it's like. As I was growing, they'd get uncomfortable even faster, because I grew quickly and they didn't fit perfectly for long. I could get around with my legs off, either by crawling or lifting myself up on my arms and swinging the rest of my body underneath me. So almost every chance I could get, especially at home, I took them off. But riding a bike was worth having my artificial legs on, so I rushed upstairs and put them on. "Ready," I said, when I came back down. We were in the front yard. There was the fence and a small avocado tree on one side and the house on the other. About 15 feet away downhill was the fence to the neighbor's house. In front of it was a lovely manicured bush grown to chest height. It flowered almost year-round, and as far as I could tell, most of the local bee population seemed to live there. I avoided it as much as possible. I'd already been stung by bees a few times and knew how much it hurt. Gary and Catherine held the bike while Paula helped me climb on. "What do I do?" I asked. "Well, you're already facing downhill, so you won't have to pedal much," Paula said. This was good because while I could manage to put the foot of my right leg on the pedal, it was impossible to get my left leg sitting comfortably, so it just hung by the side and I tried to keep it out of the way. "Just steer," Gary said. "Just steer," Catherine repeated. "Steer and keep clear of anything, then start pedaling and keep going," Gary said. Steer and pedal, I thought. Simple. I gripped the handlebars of the big green bike and leaned forward, head down, built for speed. I imagined gathering speed, pedaling faster and faster, feeling the wind in my hair going so fast. "Ready?" Gary asked. I nodded, and with one mighty shove, I was off. The first few seconds were sheer terror. I almost fell off as the bike wobbled from one side to another. Then there was a moment of exhilaration. The bike picked up enough speed to go straight for a little bit. I hadn't fallen off, I hadn't gotten my legs caught in the wheel or the chain, and I hadn't crashed into the side of the house. The wind was in my hair. I was riding a bike! From behind me I heard someone shout. I ignored it at first. The feeling of riding the bike was too much fun. "Turn! Turn the bike, Robert! Turn!" Suddenly I was headed straight for the rough branches of the bush on our side of the fence. Turn? They hadn't taught me how to turn. But I turned the handlebars hard to the right and just missed running into the bushes. Or so I thought. The momentum I'd built going downhill was too strong. While the bike was now traveling parallel to the bushes, I wasn't. I was heading toward them, or more precisely, into them. I toppled off the bike and fell straight into the bushes. I immediately started screaming to scare off the bees. Paula, Catherine, and Gary came racing down the yard to pull me free. I had a few scratches, but had avoided any bee stings. "You didn't turn soon enough," Gary said. "Not soon enough at all," Paula said. I scowled at them and started putting myself back together. My bike riding career had started and finished all in one go. Another time, Mom and Dad called us all into the living room. This was a rare enough event because we were normally scattered, Michael and Gary playing together or getting into fights with their sworn enemies from the house at the top of the street, and Catherine and Paula taking themselves off into their room and doing whatever girls did when they had a secret meeting, which was just talking to each other as far as I could tell. We were lined up in the living room from oldest to youngest. Michael, 10 years older than me, was tall, almost a mini dad. He and Gary were similar in looks, with broad faces, big ears, and light brown hair. They were always exploring, going places I couldn't go, or getting there in ways I couldn't, on their bikes or running. Paula was tall like Dad, with long, dark brown hair. She talked fast and lots, and always seemed to like the sibling go-between. More patient and willing to play with me than my older brothers. Catherine was closest to me in age, so we played, and fought together the most. She had red hair and was always being counseled by Mom to stay out of the sun. Like Mom, she was short, but everyone seemed like a giant to me most of the time, especially when I had my artificial legs off. And I had them off when Mom called us in. I was sitting on the carpet, but everyone else was standing straight. Something was up. Chocolates had been taken, Mom informed us, from the box on top of the fridge. I'm sure whoever took them thought we wouldn't notice, Mom said, walking up and down in front of us. I'm sure whoever took them thought, oh, Mom and Dad won't know if one or two is missing. Unfortunately, there are more than one or two missing, and we did notice that. She continued walking back and forth in front of us. Dad just stood there, hands behind his back, menacingly tall. So, Mom said, we're going to ask who took the chocolates. We're going to look you in the eye and ask you, and you'd better come clean, or there'll be real trouble. She marched up to one end of the line and looked at Michael. She stared at him for a few seconds. Michael, did you take any chocolates? Mom asked. I leaned forward slightly so I could get a view of something other than Catherine's knees. No, Michael said, looking straight ahead, and then turned toward Gary. Aha, I thought, the culprit. Mom took a step to her right and faced Gary. Gary, did you take the chocolates? Nope, Gary said. He turned to look at Paula, next in line. A look of dread came over Paula's face as Mom stood in front of her. Dad was now moving along the line as well, towering over Mom's shoulder, but saying nothing. Paula, did you take the chocolates? My sister paused for a second, and a look of panic flashed briefly across her face. Surely this meant she was the guilty party, I thought. But no, Paula regained her composure, turned to look at Catherine first, and then back at Mom. No, I didn't take any chocolates, Paula said. It wasn't me. Mom stared at her a few seconds longer before moving on to Catherine. The game was up. I knew I hadn't taken the chocolates, and if Michael, Gary, and Paula hadn't taken them either, then it must have been Catherine. I felt bad for Catherine, but I was happy it wasn't me. So, Catherine, Mom said, did you take any chocolates from the box on the top of the fridge? Catherine looked like she was going to cry. Here it comes, I thought. Silence for a few more seconds. Her lips trembled slightly. Here it comes. Then, ever so slowly, like it had been planned this way all along, Catherine turned to look at me. Me? Wait, what? I thought, that wasn't fair. I hadn't done it. I didn't take any chocolates, Catherine said, shaking her head. She stared at me the whole time. I looked to my left and realized there was no one there for me to look at, not even Sally, our dog. I started crying before Mom got to me. One by one, the others turned to look at me. Dad glared ominously over Mom's shoulder, and I tried to say, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. But everything was lost to my sobbing, and I got the blame. I still don't know who took those chocolates.